Welcome back, MTG Joe here, and here we are for our weekly metadata game update. Basically looking over the stats gathered from Untitled, the companion tool that tracks a whole bunch of useful data. It's free to use, and we'll show you in a sec some of the features. The link is in my video description if you want to download it and use it. But like we've been doing with every week, we're going to take a look at what's kind of transpired on the arena ladder, what's good to play, new decks, kind of new cards, stuff like that. I did a tournament report for SCG over the weekend. I'll try to do those on big weekends, but do check them out. And as always, if you do enjoy this content from the start, if you could drop a like, comment, and subscribe, it'd be greatly appreciated. Apologize in advance. My dog is being a little emotional right now and insisting I pet her. But jumping in, as always, for standard, we are doing Diamond and Mythic from September 26th onward, 150,000 match sample size. And surprisingly, Blue-White Control is the deck that's kind of come to the forefront. I know Covert Go Blue is playing a version with basically looping Devious Cover-Ups as the win con. There have been ones with Hall of the Storm Giants as the main win condition. You have some copies of Mascot Exhibition as well in the side. This one's up to 63% over 380 matches. Then we see Mono-White Aggro in various forms. And speaking of Mono-White Aggro, I'll feature that one in a sec separately because it's the deck I've been playing predominantly. I'm at Diamond 1 right now, and I've been killing it with a particular version. We see Selesnya Humans, which is a deck I haven't played too much in Standard yet, but looking to use Catilda and Sigarda. In Historic, I was playing Humans, and Sigarda was really nice in it. 63%. We see some more Mono-White Aggro. This is the version I'm playing, sans the Legion Angel. For the most part, a build very much akin to this. Just trying to see what's different compared to mine. I have them all the Skyclaves, that's it. I've like them all in my list, and I'm an extra land heavier. We see Mono Black Control, the Blood on the Snow deck continue to have some good win rates. Another version of Azorius Control with the Devious Cover-Up Teferi. This version doesn't look to be playing the Stadium. There's a version with Teferi and the Strixhaven Stadium because you can untap it, tap it as an alternate win con. I'd probably say play 2 Hall of the Storm Giants. That other list that we saw was only playing 1, but this is a premier land, and there's a lot of decks playing Field of Ruin now, so having a second one is useful because you only really have 2 Devious Cover-Ups. We see some Simic Ramp, and this is actually interesting. This is our first inclusion of Mono Green Stompy. We have a couple variations of the deck, but this was, like last week, I believe, one of the top decks. We're just not seeing that same prevalence, whether it be the Blood on the Snow decks, or just a lot of these mono-white lists now are adapting and playing, you know, more copies of Brutal Cathar, more copies of Skyclave Apparition to deal with that, and then just the prevalence of Doomscar decks, just kind of catching up. So, best of 1 meta covered. Next, best of 3 meta. So if you watched my video from the weekend on the tournaments from SCG, it was basically Izzet versus Mono Green pretty much the entire weekend. And then we saw like deviations. Izzet was very popular early and very strong. Predominantly the Izzet Epiphany list, the one that looks to copy Alrund's Epiphany, not the traditional Dragons list with Goldspan Dragon. And we saw like an uptick of Mono Green to combat this. And then we saw the win rate drop for Izzet Epiphany. And then slowly over the weekend, we saw a rise of Mono White. That is something that is pretty good matchup against both the exile effects, stuff like that, as well as the taxing effects against the Izzet decks. With such a prevalence of Izzet, there's a lot of decks mainboarding things like Test of Talents and more counterspells, which are inherently bad against the mono-white decks, which get under you very quickly and dump their hand. So it's an interesting like cat and mouse game that transpired. In best of 3, we still see Mono Green Stompy as the kind of the go-to deck. And then we see like the Izzet Dragons list. So the Dragons list, you can usually tell they have the creatures main. The control list generally, if they do have anything, maybe 1 or 2 Smoldering Eggs in the main. We continue to see the Selesnya kind of festival mid-range list. This was kind of hit hard because so many of the blue decks are playing Disdainful Stroke, which really hampers this particular deck. We see Mono Black Control, which is good against the creature decks, bad against the Izzet Control deck. And interestingly, This has only got a 50% win rate. This is still dragons. So interesting, we don't see a lot of the is it control list showing up in this sample size, looking from September. I'm actually curious really quick, if we just focus on mythic games, if it shows up at all. Nope. So interesting. It is a small sample size. I'm doing this on October 3rd, so it's only a week of data, and 16,000 matches really isn't a lot when you think about the grand scheme of things. So it's historic. We finally have enough data to look at some historic matches. Best of one, we see Jeskai Control come up. Not really any new innovation from the new set. Notably, a lot of them are playing Archmage Charm main. So this one's looking to do the Magma Opus Gearhulk. I did play against one version that played Faithless Mending. It was no Teferi, just Faithless Mending to kind of gain you life, dig you to the Gearhulks. That was pretty sweet. We see Boros Burn. They are still running Shock. The new Shock from the new set is probably just a strict upgrade over this. You get the Scry over it. Elves continues to put up results. We see the Mono White Humans list. That can be a taxing deck for like trickery, stuff like that. The Mono Red Aggro, the kind of all-in Reckless Ringleader, Haste Out Uranix, Embercleave Vortex deck. Still putting up decent results. Notably though, this deck was really meant to prey on the trickery decks. With life gain out of the format, it's also not too bad, but this version here, I've played this a lot. The Chain Whirlers don't do much, even against Elves at times, and you don't have as much interaction. So it pushes out more damage against control, which is good, but makes you a little bit weaker on the backside. Best of 3. So best of 3, I had to do Platinum to Mythic and September 16th to get a sample size large enough to display decks. Standard is a lot more popular right now than Historic. And this is the deck I was playing a bit towards the end of last season. I'll have a video up on this. Slight changes to the sideboard, but it is a Selesnya Company Humans Tribal list. And you're playing stuff like Adeline, Brutal Cathar with Collected Company, and then Sigarda at the top end. In Historic, you get copies of Esper Sentinel, you get the Thalia's Lieutenant and Thalia, which really jumpstarts the deck. We see the Mono Red Madness deck that was popping around a lot last time. This one looks to have no innovations to it from the new set. And that's kind of expected. Historic, you shouldn't expect like the format to change on its head unless it's a Historic injected. We see a Abzan version of the deck, black, white, and green. This one's using Kudro and Kitesail Freebooter, as well as Dire Tactics. So this one looks to scale a little bit larger, but you lose kind of the engine of Sigarda. What I found with this version is you're more susceptible to Anger of the Gods, because if Kudro dies, then you lose all that. Whereas this version here, you have stuff like Thalia that sticks around, and Adeline from Anger of the Gods. There's 5-color Niv, which is kind of the mid-range, really wants to prey on these creature decks. Kavu oftentimes could be a 2-mana 5/5 in this deck, and then you just get a Breath of Removal, Clarion, Drown, Vanishing Verse, Helix. So kind of pick your own adventure with those. And then we see the Jeskai decks. They're still putting up results, just there's so many variations with it. That there's not enough sample size to really show it at this point. All right, so that's kind of a quick and dirty overview of what's happening in the format. These will be kind of faster now that this format is settling a bit. There was the Mtg Melee Tournament. We can actually see really quick how that's going. So this is the so you could play one of the qualifiers for 8 wins, or sorry, for 4 wins, then you play in the weekend tournament. So we see Mono Green just pretty much cleaning up. Mono Green, Mono Green, Mono Green, an Epiphany, Mono Green, Mono Green, Mono White, Mono White. So looking down quickly, they don't have the stats up yet. Oh, but this is cut to top 8. So not in the top 8 yet, but really here what we're seeing is just a prevalence of Mono Green, Mono White. Is it Epiphany? Like if we look down the list, Naya Midrange is the next unique deck out of the 3, and that comes in at number 14. And then it's pretty much got a Jun mid-range down here, which is usually just the... Oh, this one's a little bit more mid-rangey, kind of control-y elements. That one's kind of cool. Simic aggro, which is mono green splash counters. Yeah, so it's a heavy mono green and Epiphany. What this means is Chariot going to be banned, is Alrund's going to be banned, Epiphany. That's things maybe after Worlds Championship we'll get an eye out for. This is Mtg Melee. If you ever want to play in these tournaments, you can do it through this site. And then finally, the list I've been playing. So it's on the side. It's the Monolight Exile. You're using stuff like Stonebinders Familiar that gets bigger when you exile stuff. You have your kind of creature package, Sun Gold Exiles. You have Brutal Cathar and Skyclave that also exiles. And I've liked them all. The Skyclaves as a couple 2-ofs. It's really good with Adeline to just push through additional damage. So I'm at Diamond 1 right now. I'm 43-15 with the list that's tracked while I was playing PC. And I went another 6-1 on mobile last night while I was watching a movie. So 49-16. I was actually 9-0 at one point against Mono White, but just ran into kind of a bad streak. I came out positive against Mono Green. I would say right now the Izzet Control deck probably feels the most hopeless. I lost 2 games to Blue-White Control, but those were games where if I had a draw go one other way, it would have happened. But the Izzet Control decks that are playing Cinderclasm, Fading Hope, all those kind of bounce effects feels really, really rough. But the creature-based decks have felt really good. Gruul 5-0, Mono Black Snow 4-0, Mono Blue Delver. The Dimir Control deck's kind of a joke. It's so easy to play against. And then just kind of a mismatch. But Mono White, positive record, kind of your big ones in that. And still a positive record against Blue White. I'm not seeing it enough to really warrant. Like if we look at what I've played against recently, like none in this version. I was testing out a Fateful Absence. Didn't play that well. I think here we didn't play it either. So like I'm not seeing it enough to really warrant the switch. Like I can build this deck better against against Blue-White Control, Paladin class, stuff like that. But right now I've found this configuration to be the best. And like I said, we're only 6 wins from Mythic, so it'll be a nice little streak. So anyways, if you do enjoy this content, as always, drop a like, comment, and subscribe. I put out gameplay pretty much every day of the week. Predominantly standard right now, but will go back to historic. I was big on historic when like new sets drop. It's still my favorite format. It's just standard's really fresh. There's a lot of ways to explore. But yeah, let me know what you think. And kind of question for viewers: do you want to see Alrund's Epiphany and Eska's Chariot banned? Let me know in the comments what you think, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.